Welcome to Toffee TV. I'm delighted to say I'm joined by Ray Hall in the studio, former Everton Academy manager, but he did have quite academy coach. He had quite a few titles while you were there. Academy director was another one, I think. But before we get on to Everton, Ray, give us a little bit of how you got there, basically. I mean, I knew you before you went to Everton anyway, but give us a little bit of your background before you got to Everton.
Okay, well, I'm local, born and bred in Everton, and went to a grammar school, also high school, and that's my love of football. I played for Merseyside grammar schools, then Lancashire grammar schools, which was the whole of the northwest then, and England grammar schools, which doesn't mean much, but it meant a little bit to me. Non-league standard as a player. But realised very early on in my playing career that I didn't have, I don't know, the X ingredient that makes players, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. And then I became a teacher, physical education, and a lecturer. It took a little bit of a knocking now and again at Everton by, well, how have you got that job? Who have you played for? All that kind of business. And now I never make an excuse for it, because the qualities that are picked up as a teacher and a lecturer, you know, management, organisation, communication, humility, all of those they help you throughout life. So I was, you know, it was a great time for us. And then in many guises, the head of youth at Everton. And I must tell you about my interview, if you don't mind.
Go on.
Okay, it was, I'd worked a number of things, and when I worked as a coach for Lancashire grammar schools, I brought a team down to Belfield, and I have to say, we battered Everton. And it was slightly embarrassing for me as an Evertonian. So I'm walking off, and the youth development officer then, Ray Minchell, said, do you fancy joining us? I thought, oh, yeah.
This will be nice.
And he said, right, make your way here next Tuesday night. He said, but there's one condition. And I went, he said, you've got to bring half of that team with you. So that's how I got it. After I'd finished, I then joined Everton as a part-time coach, which was, you know, I'm working with elite players for the first time, and really interested in kind of what went on. And unfortunately, I don't think the years kind of blend in, but Howard, who was had come back for the second time, needed to get jobs for the players like Lyons and Paul Power. So they took over working with the schoolboys. So I'm probably one of a few people that Howard sacked and brought back a couple of years later. But talking about bringing me back, it was at a time just in you know, we'd won the cup and we were really hammering away with the first team, our successful years. And I get a phone call one morning, and it was Colin Harvey, and Colin said, Ray, the gaffer would like a word with you. And it was the time when when Everton were making changes and all the rest of it. So he said, the boss wants a word with you. I said, when? He said, tomorrow morning. So I rock up at Belfield, get upstairs, knock on the door, and I heard, he said, Mr. Kendall, it's Ray Hall. Real sheepish like, get in here, kid. So I sat in, and he said, we're losing players, Ray, young players, and we're losing them to the other crew. He said, we probably need to go back a couple of years and build it up again. Would you be interested in being the youth development officer? I said, I'd love it, you know. And at that stage, I got a little bit of cocky in the interview. And I'm looking over the table, and I said, boss, I said, what exactly does the youth development officer do? He stood up and leant across his table. I honestly thought he was going to chin me. And he said, I don't care if you stay in bed all day. He said, just bring all the best players.
Right.
And it was the greatest job description I had in 22 years.
Yeah, I bet it was. Yeah, that's not
you
bad,
know. So anyway, I started the next day.
He knew his stuff, Howard, though, didn't he? He was great at that, wasn't he? Like people and that, he just had a way, didn't he? But you knew when he was serious about something, didn't you?
Well, one of the questions that you get asked is like, who's the best manager, and you can't really answer. But he gave me a start. Yeah. And you know, he kind of looked after me. Right. When I got in there, because it was new and we were doing it, and I got to understand what he wanted. Yeah. And one of the jobs I had of a match day was I'd go down the tunnel into his little room, and he'd be and I'd do like all the little, you know, the tickets for such and such. And Ray, get us a drink of water. All of the little jobs. And I went in one and what had happened when I got the job, he said, what we need to do is get your name out there, Ray, and also players, you know, the next time you have like an under 15, 16 team, I'll go on it. We'll get the photographers there, and you're off. So I go into his room, and we've taken a photo. Howard wasn't on it, and he's just in his desk. And I opened the door and I said, "Boss, anything?" And he picked the program up, and he just chucked it at me. I hit me, but so I bent down, picked it up, and as I'm leaning down picking it up, he went, "Socks." So anyway, I'm walking down the corridor, opens it up to the photograph page, and all the players are sitting fantastic, like upright, so, and all the socks are up, and mine are like halfway down me, and I'd forgotten to pull them up.
He wasn't happy.
No, never happened again. You know, and he's kind of, you know, he's meticulous in what he did, and anything that wouldn't let anybody sign his autograph. You know, he had to do it himself. Anyway, digress.
No, but that's it, isn't it? And obviously you've gone in there as the youth development officer. Everton had a little spell in the team. The best team obviously had people like Gary Stevens and who'd come through. Kevin Ratcliffe obviously had come through. I know we kind of brought Graham Sharp in from Dumbarton, but he played in the reserves and come through. So we had Steve McMahon, Kevin Richardson, and you know them players. So we'd had a little go, and then it tailed off a little bit. And then obviously you go in there in the 90s. It was 1990, wasn't it, when you went in there for just under 22 years, which is a long time to hold.
Just over 20.
Just over 2. Well, that's what you're here for, to correct me. I'm just giving you some.
But don't forget, I did 18 months as a part-time coach as well. So
well, of course. So you've got a long-standing thing with Everton. But when you go in there, so you get your feet under the table, and what did you do to go about it? Like, what was it like? What did you find when you went in there? Because obviously it was all new. You're saying, what do you want me to do as a youth development officer? What did you set out to do at that time to try and make it different?
That's a great question, because when I look back from 1990 to say 1993, 4, it was the players that were coming through had all been in the regime before. Yeah. And I look back and I think, I was lucky to get away with those 3 years, because nobody came through. Well, they did and they didn't. It was the guys that, all credit to the guys that went before me. Yeah. But I think actually what I was doing was sorting out the program and the process. Yeah. So it started to rock up when players like Leon Osman were 13, 14, and Ibo, and that crew that actually went on to win the FA Youth Cup. Yeah. But what I needed to do was to get everybody on side. So I started off with just me, a part-time secretary, a youth coach, and first aid guy. And I quickly had to put together a staff that knew what we were doing. Yeah. And we set out on, and it sounds kind of like lecturing, but a process. And the process really hasn't changed. It's just expanded. And that process was identify them, So we needed to improve our scouts, our scouting system, recruit them, because you've got the crew across the way there and United, all of those, all after the same players.
Course,
Once you've recruited them, you then do the business in terms of developing them. All right, and then at the end of the whole thing is whether they're going to be good enough. And you mentioned earlier on about a pathway. You know, what exactly happens? Did they stay? Did they get released? And in that last little bit, that's the most important thing. Opportunity comes into it.
Course,
so as the programme grew, we needed to have those 4 blocks, if you like, in place. And dare I say it, and it's not arrogance, we needed to make those processes and our role in them world leading.
Right.
Because we could see that the young players were having to play against and with the best players in the world. And so that was the level. That was the level we had to get to.
Right.
And it worked. We did okay on it. The players that started to come together, like you know, Ozzy, Ibbo, all of those, they actually won the Milk Cup in Northern Ireland.
In Ireland.
And that was a great kind of indicator of what you had.
Right.
And I coached that group. I actually coached that group.
Brilliant.
One of the problems that I found, Barry, was that I was doing all of this work, and it wasn't me. It was the staff were doing it, and all the managers were changing all of the time. So going back to my teaching background, you know, if a kid went into a school and he's 11. He's got the same teachers more or less till he's 18, and then he leaves, and so you get to know the people. And well, I had and kind of I just made a little note before I came in. Since Howard took me on, Jimmy Gabriel, Mike Walker, Joe Royle, Dave Watson, Howard again, and right at the end of the kind of, you know, the 90s, Walter Smith. So that's 6, 7, you know, you don't already, really know what they want. So the only way you could do it was what the FA looked at.
Right.
And the FA were conscious that there hadn't been any success since 1966 for the national side. And they put that down to a coaching programme and access to the players. So they improved the coach's pathway, if you like. Access needed. They looked at, you know, the Dutch system, and you know the Czech system, where it brings through players in through all the time. And they start at like 8, 9 years of age. So in the early years, you had like an associate schoolboy form, a pink and a blue form, and then you kept one and the other one, but you couldn't sign one of those till the kids were 15. Now overnight, that dropped to 9 years of age. So suddenly, you've got a whole new programme.
I've still got mine from Everton. I've still got mine in a thing of when I signed.
The Centre of Excellence, Academy thing.
The associate school, we were on 15.
Right.
That's all still there. It's in a folder there.
Well,
that did change, didn't it, at the age?
2 years. And I suppose it worked for me because I needed some stability. And you know, my contracts were 1 year and 2 years and so on. So myself and the director for youth, Keith Tamlin, we went in to see the chairman, Peter Johnson, and said, look, I'm just about getting through to the players and so on. And the manager's going, and he's bringing his own coaches in, which is up to him, you know, and all that. I said, but it's not working. We need an autonomous unit that can prosper, if you like. And if it's no good, you throw the lot of us out. But give me 3 years to do it. And he said, okay. And he was really good at it. He said, yeah, okay. He said, I don't really understand what you're doing. He said, but I'll take your word for it. But I've got a condition. And I thought, oh, God.
There we go.
He said, I want Colin Harvey to be the youth coach. So it was birthday, Christmas, all rolled into one. I mean, and Colin was tough with the kids and tough, but you know, one of those fellas who, in terms of coaching and the way he saw things, nobody's got a bad word for him. So that's, you know, between us.
Yeah.
I did the stuff he didn't want to do, and he did all the stuff I wanted to do, but better. So, and then it culminated in you know, probably the best time that we've had for a while. Well, we've not won it since. We won the FA Youth Cup in 1997, 98.
Well, let's talk. I've got the team here because I was just looking through it, because obviously it was brilliant, wasn't it? For that, because that, as a fan as well, that gives you hope that we've got these kids who are going to come through. They've been successful, and sometimes it works like that, sometimes it doesn't. But that squad, the youth winning squad, was Dean Delaney, goalkeeper, Carl Regan, Adam Eaton, Adam Farley played made it come on for the first team at Derby County in a live game, so he played in the first team. Richard Dunn, we know all about. Mick O'Brien was the captain. He played for Torquay, didn't he, after Everton? David Poppleton, Leon Osman, needs no introduction. Phil Jevons, who played 9 or 10 times for the first team. Jamie Milligan, left footer, nice footballer. I think he played for Blackpool, played a lot of games for Blackpool, Jamie. Danny Cadamati, played in our first team. Tony Hibbert, played in our first team. Franny Jeffers, first team. Wayne McDermott and Michael Ball, who got in the first team but was part of that. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of that squad played for Everton in the first team. And if you take out Farley, because it was a fleeting one, and maybe Jevo, because I think he played 9 or 10. Everybody else played a good amount of games for Everton's first team. You got money for Richard Dunn, money for Michael Ball. So that's from a squad perspective, you've more than, in that respect, you more than did your job, didn't you? Because to bring that many through, I think if Paul Tate now at Everton at 21s has 8 or 9 of that 21s who play in Everton's first team, I think we'll all be dancing. We don't see that. So when you might be a little bit more kind of humble about it, but that is very impressive. By any stretch, that is impressive numbers for a team that won the Youth Cup. Yeah,
but... And again, I don't want to sound conceited. Colin and I never saw it like that. We saw it as part of what the job was. Yeah. And it's interesting now, as the game's globalised and the expanse in just about everything, including the long-term development programmes, you know, from 9 through to the first team. Yeah. They've all changed and become unbelievable. But I go to some clubs now and I walk round and I'm not quite sure what their aim was. Yeah. We set out, and our aim was to develop a minimum of 1 player a season to play in the first team. Yeah. Right. So after a period of 3 or 4, you've got 4. You know, you know, some might drop off at the end. And that was plastered all over, you know, what we did. Was it? Yeah. And I don't see that. And rightly or wrongly, I don't know whether it should be that or what. But that's what we saw. And going back to Howard, what he said to me the first time, he said, "Just bring me the best kids." Yeah. And so once we did our bit in identifying and recruiting, Colin and his men did the best. They and it was interesting. You know, I said earlier on about a groundswell of young players not coming to Everton, even though they were Evertonians. Yeah. That group changed it, and the player that changed it was Michael Ball. Yeah. He was at Liverpool till he was 14. And I spoke to his mum and dad, and I said, "We've got this. We're off and running." He said, "We're in." Richard Dunn turned down going to Arsenal and Notts Forest to come to us. Got another one. Gavin McCann,
not a player.
Who actually... Does this go out in Manchester?
Goes out all over the world, mate. Goes out all over the world.
He actually signed for Manchester United. Did he? Yeah, mad Manchester United fan from Kirkham near Preston. Yeah. But loved Everton, loved his time, because he used to come and, you know, and I'd take all that. And I got a phone call from his dad. We were on a bus going to Sheffield United to play in a youth game. Nice, yeah. Phone goes and it was Dad, and he said, "Ray, I've got, you know, some news, you know." He said, "Gav, I won't tell you who came round to the house, but you can work it out." Yeah. Signed for Manchester United. So I went, oh gosh, well I hope he's. He said, but I don't know what to do with these pink and blue forms.
The old pink and blue forms.
and I won't finish it, but
no,
I'm sure if
Gavin can't play for Everton, so we'll leave it at that. We'll leave it at that.
Yeah.
He was a good player. I mean, he was definitely one. I remember at the time thinking he deserved a chance at us, and he didn't get it, and he went on
to Sunderland.
Very good Sunderland.
Played for England a couple of times.
And you were like them when we played Rangers in '97 in it wasn't Nev test. It was a testimonial game. I think we played them at pre-season. We beat them 3-2 with Goodison, but he went and done Laudrup right in front of the Rangers fans. A young kid smashed them, and their fans are trying to get on the pitch, and he just jogged away. And I thought, he'll do for me. You've got the bottle to do that in front of them in a game like that. And he was a lovely footballer, and again, frustrating because he could have played for Everton quite easily, because he did well everywhere else he went, didn't he? So. One of them.
He was the first player that Howard and I went to speak to the parents.
Really?
Yeah, and to see Howard in operation, because anyway, but just so it's interesting, and all the players that you mentioned there, there's a number of them now are still in the game.
Nice, yeah.
You know, as coaches, as physios, Carl Howard, who was that age group. So it's. The hope that I would give young players, and I think one of your questions later on is about how you handle parents, and one of the most difficult things that I had was I made or I broke dreams.
Yeah.
And in the cold light of day, I look back and I think, could I have done it any better? Well, the answer is yes, but when I first started, when they were being released, there was a kind of, by the time the late 90s came in, when the players were released from the club with their parents, their immediate reaction was thanks. And that's how we changed the culture of it. You know, they were sorry we were going, you know, but they had the most fantastic time they could have had, and we found other clubs for them, you know.
See, I got nothing from Everton when I left Everton. No aftercare. I've said this loads of times because I've had friends who've got their lads have been released, and it's still not good enough. Some of the aftercare, it's still not good enough. There's two of my mates released from Manchester United recently. Nothing really, not what you'd expect.
Okay.
At Everton, it was just like, no, sorry, a shake of your hand and off you go, you know. And if you've then turned that from that when you walk out, it's difficult, isn't it? It's the worst conversation in the world.
And people say it must be terrible, but you learn to manage it. And the interesting thing for me was one of the clubs not far away from us used to send letters. I'm sorry, and I thought, anyway, it came. A parent came to see me once, and she said, you know, my sons were leaving the district, but, you know, have you got anything to say? And she said, well, so I said, no, wish him well. She said, you know, if you don't mind me saying something to you, and it was great. She said, why do you have the boys in with you when you're releasing them? And I said, I never thought of it. Why? She said, it's really difficult for the parents. If you sit with a boy and you say, look, I'm terribly sorry, he's not got over the line, and he's there and he starts to cry, they're only 15, 16, everybody kicks off. So what we did is we used to invite the family to come in. We would say, you know, we'll make decision making. We would prefer your son not to be with you.
Give the option,
unless you particularly want him.
Oh, okay, sure,
So what we did was that the parents would come in and I'd say, well, look, unfortunately your boy's not got over the line. But we've got another club for him. Do you want to tell him, or do you want me to tell him? And in 15 years, Barry, only one parent said, no, you tell him. They all took it upon themselves to tell him, which was a more sympathetic way of doing it, wasn't it?
Yeah, no, it's fair. That's fair comments. So from that, I mean, what was that like winning the Youth Cup? Because that must be, the culmination of winning that must be tremendous. Obviously, it's 5-3 on aggregate, wasn't it? And
we knew we had a good team.
Yeah. But when you looked at, when you looked at that side, did you think, he can play in our first team, he can play in our first team? Or was it quite not like that at that stage where you're not wanting to get too far? I know Michael Ball was in and around it already, hadn't he? So he's with him, he's in there. But people like Richard Dunn, I mean, Dunny was massive, wasn't he? But Richard Dunn, Ozzy, even though was really talented, Tony Ibba, people like that.
Yeah, we knew we had something different, but I think from my side and from Colin's side, we kept their feet off the ground, you know, when no one got ahead of themselves. And again, we expected them to play in the first team. That's what they came to the club to do. But I remember, because I took the team up to about 15, 16.
Nice, yeah.
And you'd go in a dressing room and you'd look round and you'd think, Jeffers, Ozzy, Ibbo. And you're going around and you're thinking, I'd hate to play against them. I'd hate to play against them. Yeah. And they were all mates as well. It was good. So that kind of, I don't know, bonding and, you know, the socialisation. It was great. And when we won it, I think the game that changed it was Watford.
Right.
We beat Watford 3-2, and it was like the Arctic. We thought the game was going to be called off.
Right, yeah.
And the fellas, no, you know, they must have been like, they fancied it.
Yeah.
Anyway, and we were 2-0 down after 15 minutes or something like that. And Cadamartri put on, whether he's a good ice skater, he's never ever told me, but he was sensational. Don't think he scored.
Yeah, but he
was, and when they got through there, they got in the dressing room and he thought, this is it. And we, in the semi-final, we played Leeds home and away. They'd won it the year before, and they were all saying he had a better team
that year.
And we murdered him.
Yeah.
And that's,
So you can tell then, can't you, that something's building, obviously 3-1 away when at Evo Park, and then it was 2-2 with Goodison, wasn't it? But the work had been done, hadn't it?
Could you imagine as well, Archie Knox and Walter Smith came in to be greeted by that team who just So I got off to a good start.
To a great start, not a bad start, yeah. Just there we are, Well, I mean, obviously, like you were just saying, I mean, you went in, the processes. What is the process for spotting up? How do you get? You're talking about Howard saying to you, just get me the best players. Like how does that work? Because I imagine it's like in my day, it was Sid. Sid Benson. Sid was around. I was playing for Wigan. Sid come down here and stuff. It was just one fella look after a bit. You see it grow over the years. Now you see, you know, down with me lad, there's all scouts, there's Liverpool, Everton, they're everywhere. Was it a case of building that network up? Was it someone saying, Ray, we've got this kid here who looks like he's a bit of a player? Was he invited to Belfield, or did you send someone else out to look at him? How did the process work?
With the change into academies, you were allowed to recruit within an hour's travelling distance. So immediately that moved the boundary, because it was either Liverpool or Kirby or something, and you'd have like somebody up in Newcastle doing a bit somebody in, but they were mates, and so they became a structure of what happened, and it's interesting, Barry, that what I do now, I do a lot of work on talent identification, all right, which is what you're asking, what you look for. And in the process of identifying, recruiting, developing, and then like the opportunity of playing in the first team, we've got 3 of them boxed off in terms of knowledge and personnel, and you know. So you take when I started, I was the coach, I was the psychologist, and I had one youth coach, a part-time secretary. You know, there's like 5 of us, and now there's 20 or so in each department.
In each department.
And of all the processes, I think it's talent ID, and especially with the younger players that we haven't got right.
Okay.
And we're making decisions, and I'm sorry if this sounds a little bit heavy now, but we're making decisions on young players who are 8, 9, 10 and 11 and 12. And I did. And in hindsight, I grimace because I can just imagine those families of having a 12-year-old boy who's been told he hasn't got over the line. And
12.
And I've got a grandson who's going through that process now.
Right, yeah.
And we need to get better at identifying the right qualities,
Right, yeah.
because that makes it the heartbreak going out of it, rather than saying, well, you know, he looks a terrific player, and he, you know, and you're taking him from all over the place, and it becomes like you know, the last man standing kind of thing.
Yeah.
Whereas if we started off with a 9 or 10-year-old having a 70% chance of still being there when he's 16 or 18, that's real progress. I don't think, and there'll be people out there saying, oh, you know, he's talking, but I see it. And I'll give you an example. I sometimes do presentations, and I do, if you had, I don't know, 50, 100 people in a room, and you ask them all what quality that they need to possess to be an elite player. Talking about, you know, Everton's academy. Okay. 70% of them would give you a mental or mindset quality. Right. They would say attitude, desire, will to win, you know, motivation. And then you get some would say good technique. You get some would say, you know, he's quick, he's fast. So and the FA use like a box of development. So they'll have technical and tactical. They'll have physical. They'll have social, a leader, and communication skills. Is he? And the final one is mindset or mental.
Right. Yeah.
And nearly 3/4 of any football group would choose that one.
Yeah.
Why don't coaches coach it then? So if motivation is high on your list, how do you coach that? I don't know, but I'll find people who could do. I once bumped into a scout of a club I want to talk about, and he said, my grandson was playing, and he said, what are you doing here? I said, my grandson's playing over there. He said, oh yeah, he said, he looks a good athlete. I thought, what's that mean? And then I said, yeah, I suppose he's a good one. And then he said, good attitude on him as well, hasn't he? And I said, what's that mean? How does it show itself? So, and that's the area that I kind of, because I can't run anymore. I've got arthritis. I play too much golf, but I'd love to get involved in that kind of, and because we owe it to the families to make the decisions more objective rather than subjective. So it used to be Sid Benson's got a good eye for them. It's gone beyond that, right? Because the age group has changed. I'm sorry, I got a bit carried away.
No, it's dead interesting, because obviously, I mean, I've got a 12-year-old, so I see different attributes of different kids, and she is, and whatever, but it's dead interesting anyway, as an Evertonian, because obviously you're always looking and what's this kid got, Like I watch, you know, without being disrespectful to the under-21s, I'm 50 honest, I still think I could play in that league, because it's just sterile football to me. It's loads of technique, but there's a I don't know, there seems to be just we have good players, and then between, this wasn't one of my questions, but I'm going to ask you it anyway, between kind of like 18 and 21, they just seem to fall by the wayside. Now, I look at it and think, is it, when you started, it was still reserved team, was still there, weren't they? So the kids are playing reserve team as well, so you're playing with pros and
B team, A team,
reserve. So you're getting whacked. A team would be in the Lancashire League, you play Marine, and they're getting kicked all over the place at Marine, and team you missed in Manchester, they had to beat you everywhere. But it readied you for men's football, whereas I look now and I still think when I watched Everton the other night play Leicester, and they're like, where's the tackling gone? Where's the intensity? Lovely technique, pull a ball down, pick a pass. So that when they do step into a first team scenario, all of a sudden you get nothing, as you know. You get nothing at Premier League level, you get nothing at league level. I remember Leon Osmond saying he went to, I think it was Carlisle, and he was like, this was, I'm at Everton, this will be easy. And a couple of the Carlisle centre-backs grabbed over and went, this is our life, mate, this is our livelihood, you can't come here and walk around. And he said it was the best thing that ever happened, because he rolled his sleeves up and got in, and Ozzy obviously played hundreds of games for Everton Football Club because of that. And I just wonder if between 18 and 21, what do you think we could be doing to kind of prepare them a little bit better?
When the academies came out, if you imagine the pyramid starting at the bottom, going in chunks of 9 to 12, 12 to 16, 16 to 18, 18 to 20, and so on. It was that block at the top that it was more first team.
Right, yeah.
And so academies gradually took over the role of taking over that 21. So there'd be no bulges in it, it'd be a perfect pyramid going up. And I think that's the right way of doing it. Right. The problem arose whereby, in my time, but it doesn't happen so much now, all the best players didn't play in the 21s. They went straight from 18 to the first team. In Wayne's case, 16. And
they wanted them at 15.
so it kind of is a problem that maybe people didn't foresee.
Right.
The program now, I think, is as good as it gets.
Yeah.
But at 18, 21, the pathway must be loans, must be going out to other. And so that's taken the place of the reserve football.
Yeah.
David Moyes, to be fair, and I couldn't give him an answer, he always wanted to take over Southport. And as
an Everton B team almost. Fair himself about that.
I don't know what answer I gave him, because it made sense.
No. No, but it does, doesn't it? Because obviously some clubs acquire other clubs, don't they?
Yes.
In Europe, and go, right, well, you're playing in our under 21s, you're a midfield player, but this isn't testing you. You're playing a bit better than some of these lads. Because like you said it before, I'm glad you said it, because I'd read in Germany the way they do it. It's one for the first team, one to sell. That's the youth thing that they bring through, right? And so when you said one, we get one in the first team of development. And I'd seen a German coach a few years ago saying, often them other 10 players, it's a fuel this player.
That's right.
So you're playing in that team, and I'm at Everton. I play for Everton, but the reality is it's the other lad who's got a chance. You're a decent footballer, might get a career out of it, but all eyes are on this fella because we think he can get there. Them good players then go and play in other clubs, league football. Can they sink or swim? Some of the ones you mightn't think make it actually shine and can come through. I think with the way Moyes wanted, and I've heard him say that a few times, is to have one of those clubs, wasn't it, and to almost go, right, well, if you've got 3 there who might be, let's get them in here and see whether they can play in league football. Chelsea did it a totally different way, through the back door with Vitus Arnhem in Holland, didn't they? Yeah. But we've seen it teams like Leicester who've got a team in Belgium, and a few other, Brentford, they've had a few, Midland, haven't they, in Denmark. So clubs are kind of doing it.
A lot of it's done commercially as well, so it's an outlet for the team. Interesting. When David first came, the best, or the closest to winning it, well, we got to the semi-final after winning it.
Yeah.
And Joe Cole and
not bad.
They kind of knocked us out. And the semi-final was us and West Ham and Coventry and somebody else. And Coventry beat the other team, I don't know who it was, like 6-7 over 2.
Right.
And West Ham beat Coventry 13 something over 2 legs. So and a couple of the lads couldn't play because they were in the first team. But when David came, my first meeting with him was at Aston Villa when we played in the Youth Cup.
In the Youth Cup, yeah.
And he said to me, Ray, the lad Rooney. So, he said, how good is he? I said, he's the best player in the club, boss. Well, I can't tell you what he said to me. Is he only 15?
Yeah.
Anyway, after it finished, he come over to me and he said, God, you might be right.
I mean, obviously we can't ignore Wayne, because obviously he's one of the best footballers England's ever produced, let alone Everton. Had this England goal record taken not so long ago by Harry Kane, who's another story. But I mean, what was that? I saw you tell a story that he played at Manchester United and scored an overhead kick, and everyone just kind of looked as if to go, what's going on here? But was he, when he come in, were you like, oh, he's special? Or were you like, oh, this kid looks like a good little player? Was it easy to spot?
Yeah, and it was difficult because none of us had worked with anything like him.
Okay.
And even Colin.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, Colin kind of never went overboard about anything. No. And I remember saying to him one, I said, what about Rooney? He went, got a bit of something.
There you go. Fair enough. That was a compliment.
Yeah. But when he actually came to us, he was just different in everything. You asked me a question. I've forgotten. I'll come back to it on what you look for.
Yeah.
And if there's a number of things, but if one of them makes a difference in a team, but he did at every level he went to.
Yeah.
And it didn't. You seldom see him have a bad game. You know what I mean? He was always. Yeah. If somebody else had a great game, he was always like not far off it, and so that went all the way through. And for me, I used to speak to people about, and a lot of people in the game said he's the best ever. I actually got asked a question the other night, and somebody said, "Would you do anything differently if you went? If you could?"
If you could, yeah.
And in a funny kind of way, it would be manage the player that Wayne Rooney is better.
Right.
Not him.
Yeah.
But his legacy.
Right. Okay.
Because almost the elephant in the room, we should have said, that's our model. Yeah. That's what we should aim for all the time.
Problem is, there's not many of them.
Well, there aren't. But if you aim that high, who knows? Because some of these clubs are still turning them out. And in a funny kind of way, Ray Minchell said to me, who's I followed into the job. He said, "You've had it now, Ray." What? He said, "The boy Rooney, they'll expect one every year."
That's it. Yeah. And I think, there was such a buzz about him as a young kid. And obviously, I remember the goal at Tottenham. In fact, he scored the free kick at Tottenham and he hits it. It comes back and hits it with his other foot in the top corner. But his second goal in that never gets spoken about. Just the touch is unbelievable.
Yeah. Swivels.
It's in, and it, like, you should, obviously the final against Villa, and it's the once a blue at Franny and all that. But they just seen him, and I've told the story before. I was working at Everton at the time, the ticket office, and the day before he made his debut against Spurs, he come down with his mate. He's got no top on. Told him this, he was laughing. No top on, tucked in his shorts. He's keeping the ball up at the window. I'm giving his mate a ticket, and he's keeping it. And I'm thinking, all my hopes are going to be on you tomorrow against Spurs, and you're here. No shirt on the day before, walking around the streets with a ball. But he was obviously. He was the best, but I mean, players like Ross Barkley, who you'd had there as well. I know Ross physically was always a big kid anyway, wasn't he? But the ability he had, and he's a frustrating one for me, because I think he should have done more in the game, Ross, and he should have really done more with Everton. for the attributes he had. Was he another one that you could sell?
I think it got to the stage where, you know, you'd say, yeah, he's going to play in our first team.
Right.
And there was a few we had. Wayne, obviously, Ross, Jack Rodwell.
Jack Rodwell, yeah.
Not disappointing. I think we could have. Comes back to this mental side of the game as well.
Yeah.
But technically, one of the best I worked with was Kieran Dowell.
Dowell, left foot. Yeah.
But you know, at some stage, it's the ones who want it more than that come through, don't they? And you look at Tony Hibbert, how many games? 200 and something games for the first team, and wasn't a regular in the youth side. No.
Well, you'd say without being disrespectful to Tony Hibbert, because he was great for Everton, but there's better footballers than Tony Hibbert don't play Premier League football.
I sometimes get asked, you know, some people. I think there's a couple of ways of getting to where you want to be, and you can make yourself a player. Tony did.
Yeah. Tony. And what is that then? What would you say?
It's the mental thing.
Yeah.
You know, whatever it is, if somebody could bottle it and throw it out there and say, look, get a swig of that, you do it. And that's my interest now is exactly what do you look for? What can you look for? What do you have to take into consideration with young players? And it's exciting because it's like the next bit of my journey.
Yeah, yeah. Because you've been in at the coalface, haven't you? Obviously doing that for so long. Did you see a change in the culture from players over the years? So, because I think we've seen it with Premier League footballers. It has changed. The money changes everything else. But did you see it on a younger level? Because we've often talked about it, like the Instagram players. You see, like some. You don't need to name names, but we see like some lads in the past, Everton players who've never played in the first team and never will play in the first team. They're driving 4x4s and everything. You're thinking, where do you go from here then? Because you've got all the trappings that look tremendous, but you're never going to be a Premier League footballer. But it looks like you are. And do they get stuff a bit too soon? I mean, I don't need to name people, but in your experience, because you've been in that position, you've been in that job, you've been in that football club, and it'll be like this a lot of other football clubs as well. Do they get too much too soon? Is there a better way? Because obviously you've got to reward players, and if we're in an area where you've got Liverpool and you've got Manchester United and Man City, and if they want to take a little bit of a step, there's Blackburn Rovers, and so there's clubs who are willing to go, right, come here, I'll give you 10 grand a week because you look like you might make it. Is there a better way we could manage them, or do we just have to accept it? It's that mental side of.
I don't think you have to accept it. You have to be very brave. I mean, the biggest, you know, if a club not far away from you is offering an 8-year-old boy his parents to pay off the mortgage, what would you do about it? And so it's become one of the reasons I decided to leave, and I'm probably going to upset an awful lot of people listening to this, was the role that agents had in it. Now, when I was coming to the end of my tenure, you couldn't be with an agent until you were 18.
Yeah.
And then I think it's dropped to 16.
No, the F16 have got them, definitely.
Okay, well, that might be officially or unofficially.
Yeah,
unofficially, there's young players in my grandson's team have got an agent.
God's sake.
And he's 10. So, you know, you have all that, and there's probably a different way of doing it. But you just, you know, it's like kind of everybody's trying to get up the ladder, and if you stop there, you just fall off it.
Yeah, it is a difficult thing, because obviously it's just if everyone's scrambling for the same thing, and if it's a Wayne Rooney that only comes around once in a while, or a Steven Gerrard maybe from the other side, how do you pick those up? You've got other people who come through. But do you believe in nature or nurture in terms of development? Or is it a bit of both?
That's the easy answer. A bit of both.
Yeah.
I think that you can have advantages in your bringing up. So again, you look at a model of players coming through, and they tend to have elder siblings,
right, yeah,
because they've always got somebody to practice with. I'm a twin.
Yeah.
So we always were playing football together.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, there are areas which, so you've got all kinds of things, but, and so it's all of those in a mix. Hotspots, I'm really interested in that. So what we did when we got involved, we picked out all the best primary schools.
Right, yeah.
So there's a school in West Derby that Wayne went primary school. Wayne went to, Franny Jeffers went to, Mick Lyons, Paul Jewell. Well, you make sure that you go and look at them.
Yeah.
So that's whatever that is, that nature nurture. It's not, or are you just lucky doing that? And I was looking at the right off the subject. I was looking at the start of the London Marathon, and in the women's event, there were all the best runners, like 20 of them, but there was a row of 10 at the front, and 8 of them were from Kenya. Now, I thought, well, why are they all from? And the answer's dead easy, because they're running 15 miles a day to get to school and back. So they start that at 4.
Yeah.
You know, so there's a bit I think you need.
In there,
And I'm like, with my grandson now, if he wants to go and practice, I'll practice with him.
Yeah.
So he's got somebody, and that's what'll happen.
It helps. Yeah. Well,
I haven't really answered your question.
No, but because it isn't. I guess it. I'm just asking, just out of interest.
In your genes, maybe. But you can promote it and advance it.
And there's plenty of examples where players. Tony Hibbert being one, Jamie Vardy, I guess, is another one. He's not the most skillful footballer, but he's direct, he's quick, he's worked hard. He's non-league route as well, of course, and has had an unbelievable career. He played for England, considering he's in non-league to what he's achieved. Scored again, been in big goal for Everton this week, obviously scoring against Leeds. So he's one who's come the other way. But I'm the same. I get home from work and Jack's like, "Can we go in the garden?" I'm like, "Come on then, mate, I'll go out with him always, just to try and help him, get your touch better, can you switch it, can you shoot?"
But the beauty barrier of that is not only your involvement, but the fact that he's asking you to do it.
Yeah.
Because one of the keys to any mental attitude is motivation.
Yeah.
And if you love what you're doing.
Yeah.
And I sometimes look at some coaching that I see, and you tell the kids aren't loving it.
Yeah.
You know, they just want to play. I don't mean to be a lazy coach, but I mean, you know, it's the kids' game.
Yeah. It is difficult, isn't it, with that, because you get caught with trying to develop or just let the kids enjoy. You've got to try and, I think, probably a bit of both, isn't it? Got to do this because we want to improve you there, but also you can go and have a kick around and do what's what. Are you happy with the way the youth develop? This is another tough one, but are you happy-ish the way the youth development system is now, or would you make what you see? Because I've watched, I don't know about whether you've watched any, Ray, but I've watched things like the documentary on Crystal Palace's academy, which was out not long ago, and I've watched one on Leeds, and the Palace one stuck with me because the kids are in training every day, and some of them are only like 9 and 10, and they're renewing your contract for another season, and it seems like they're putting, and I know it might just be the way it works, but it just seemed like loads of pressures on them immediately to I've got to earn this next contract. And is there a better way to do it, or is that just the way it is now? Is that the demands of the football club? Is there no other option?
Number one, I'd take away the word contract, because it's a registration form, and I listen to parents and they say, "Oh, he's getting a new contract." He's not getting a contract at all. There's nothing binding about it. It's a registration form that gives him access to playing for the year or 2 years or whatever it is. In terms of, I think the genie's out the pot, and you can't put it back now.
No.
Unless you change I think what we've got to try and do is to form our own identity. You know, in the FA, you know, in your time, in the FA, we came out and looked at centres of excellence, looked at, it's maybe gone too far in terms of having too much responsibility for the game, their game. You know, I know a lot of professionals that played at that time would say they would only start the academy system at 12, which seems more reasonable.
That's what I believe, but that's
okay. Yeah, but the coaches and the scouts maybe would tell you, well, if you haven't got them before 12, somebody else has got them. You've had it then.
So you're fighting again, aren't you? Yeah. I'm just thinking in terms of the actual development, because I do. I might be totally wrong on it, but obviously you can only say it as you see it, can't you? But I like to see like loads of the academies and stuff like that, and I think we really produced that many better footballers than what we've always produced. And what I find really interesting is certainly like the South London thing now with the cage football and the kids who are developing there. And there's a couple of those programmes that people can watch as well. South of the River's one of them at Rio Ferdinand, where the kids aren't necessarily a football club, sort of been released. And it was, you know, when I left, it was like the end of the world, you know, but it isn't. Now, I'd love to have my time over again, because I go, right, this is what I do. Like, you did try to give me that, you know, the half-cocked turnovers. Remember me and you doing that bit of coaching in the time when we worked together. That stood me in good stead at Burnley, that one this evening. But all of that stuff, but there's so many different options, and kids are going to clubs with the idea to try and get them back into football. And there, Adam Ola-Luchman was one played against Charlton, done really well, they took him. Seeing that kind of development of players, and I just wonder, because when I interviewed Wayne Rooney, and he was just like, I just played on the streets with me. I know that Everton would probably be going mad, but I'd go home and just play with my mates. He said after the Spurs, he made his debut with Tottenham. He said, I was playing in the road with the lads for 2 hours after a match. But that taught him. You see Phil Foden's another one, out in the streets of Manchester, getting booted everywhere. And it teaches you how to take the ball, protect the ball. I just wonder if academy too early removes that side from them. I might be talking utter nonsense. It's only how I've seen it. You're better qualified, which is why I'm asking you.
Well, I mean, I'm out of that scene for like 10 years or so. But what has never changed is the mentality of the players that are successful.
Okay.
You don't play in the Premier League unless, I mean, some of our supporters might argue with it, but unless you've put a hell of an amount of work into it.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, you haven't just rocked up and you're there and you're paying you.
It's cutthroat, isn't it?
Yeah, you've been through a whole load of challenges to actually get there. And I think when you get to somebody like Wayne, he saw that as the start, not the end.
Yeah.
So,
but do you think some see it as the end?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a better question.
And I play a little bit of tennis, and was it I don't know, Ivan Lendl said one of the worst things that happened to him was become number one, because he had to work harder than he'd ever worked.
To stay
there, yeah. You mentioned before about street football. I think there are a lot of apologists out there that find problems, but so they'll say, well, the kids can't play in the streets anymore. There are no streets. There's buses and trucks and all around the street. Well, find a wall somewhere. And play against the wall. When I take a coaching session now, that's the one thing, because that's what makes the player. I phone my grandson up every day. I let him off on Sunday, and I say, have you done your 10 minutes? Yes, yes, Grandy, I have.
Right, okay.
And I know when he's telling the truth and when he isn't, but he's...
So what is it? What's the 10 minutes?
The 10 minutes is ball against the wall.
Just the wall, touch, play.
Throw it again, catch it. And I went into Everton a few years ago, and I had a cup of tea with Franny, and we were talking about the old days, you know. And he said, the kids don't play Kirby anymore.
Better of a game.
Honestly, I'm from Everton. And
never heard of it?
Never heard of it.
Right.
And I said, what's that? He said, Well, you get the ball and you just play it against the edge of the curb. It sticks up and it comes back to you. Yeah. I thought, wow, I wish I'd have known that. Yeah. I've got me.
He's got on doing it.
Yeah. Kirby, and you know, you don't. If you can control the ball and play it at that kind of level. Little story about Wayne one night.
Yeah.
And he must have been 12, 13, and we were in the big gym at Belfield.
Yeah.
You know, and it was Tuesday night, whatever it is. All the kids have gone home, and I'm just finishing off doing a bit of paperwork.
Yeah.
And the phone goes, and it was Jeanette, Wayne's mum.
Yeah.
She said, "Where's Wayne, Ray?" And I said, "How do you mean? Is he not home?" I said, "We finished half an hour ago." So she said, "No, he's not back." Well, anyway, I said, "Well, hang on." I said, "I'll walk around," but he I thought he'd gone with every. Anyway, I come out to my room, and I could hear this banging against the wall. And anyway, I went in like the big sports home. There's a little light at the top end.
Yeah.
And Wayne's banging the ball against it. And you know, when you talk about qualities and all the rest of it, you know, but he worked harder than anybody else.
Yeah.
And had the talent as well.
Yeah. That's unstoppable, isn't it? If you've got that desire. I remember Alex Ferguson talking about Cantona, obviously saying, they asked him what was the biggest thing that he brought to United, and he was like, well, the goals were great and all that. He said, but the biggest thing he brought, he said, after the first couple of training sessions, he'd ask me, could he stay out and do finishing, but he wanted kind of keep a couple of the goalies out. So he said, well, yeah, okay. He said, they'd done an hour and a half, like, you know, they're off for footballers. And he's there having shots. He said, and a couple of the players are like watching, like, what's he doing, you know? So someone's crossing, volleying it in, done about 20 minutes, 25 minutes. He said in the next couple of days, all of a sudden, like, Beckham was out there and someone else was. And after about 2 weeks, there was about 10 of them staying. And he went, it was just that thing of, that was what he did. Right foot, left foot, heading. And the other players were like, I want to do the same thing. And it's about culture or desire or attitude, whatever that is. I need to do that to get better.
And also the knowledge that if you don't do it, somebody's going to take your place. Which that competition's as important as anything.
And I don't think everyone has it. I don't think I quite had it when I don't think it's that thing, isn't it? It's that thing of you realise you're almost too late, don't you? Yeah. Some lads, you're saying about Wayne, I'm sure there's loads, will have that earlier. I remember hearing Steven Gerrard, I apologise for using Steven Gerrard, but Steven Gerrard talking, he was like, every time I went to Liverpool, I think he was 9, whatever, 10. My dad would say, make sure you're the best player. He said, so I went training, I'm going to be the best player, at 9, 10, 11. That desire to be the very best, and kids have to have that, I think, it is, because you're right, is how many, we talk, I can sit here on it. I hope I'm not sitting here Friday doing an aftermatch thing going, you're not good enough for Everton, he's not good enough, because they're quite clearly Premier League footballers, so they've got stuff, but there is, even within the Premier League, there's that desire sets players apart. Just on Everton, this is a difficult question, of course, but it's true. Do we get enough through? And do you believe the pathway is there? Because Everton Football Club, since you left it, has changed. It's changed with the new owner. Everton moved from having no money, really, limited amount of money, which you'll know better than anyone being there, to splashing crazy money around for players who, I'm quite sure, even in your professional opinion, you would say, why are they paying that for him? I wouldn't. He's not worth that value. So, and we're almost at the other side of the circle, and we're back to almost with the Premier League not being able to spend a lot of money. So therefore, the onus shifts back onto, can we bring players through as well? And it was dead interesting before you talked about loans. Everton have got a couple of decent ones at the moment. Lewis Warrington's at Fleetwood and playing most games. Tom Cannon's doing quite well at Preston. We've got Lewis Dobbin out at Derby. Played 30-odd games for the first time in his career. Jared Brantwaite. I'll leave him to last. He's the last question I'm going to ask you, Jared Brantwaite. But do we get enough through? Because I'm looking to that youth team I led out before, but 9 played in the first team. Well, 9, I think Everton won the Premier League 2 a couple of times, and maybe 3 and 4 of them played in the first team maximum, but only really Tom Davis stuck around. Others have gone. do we? And is the pathway there, do you think, when you look from the outside, as an Evertonian as well, of course?
It's a difficult question because you know, it's like, who's the best player you ever played against or saw, or, you know, the different time zones, and the game has become so globalised now. It's far more difficult to get into a first team. And I think sometimes parents, supporters don't see that. You know, so I'm almost answering against myself here, because one of the things that Howard said to me when I first started was, bring the best players you can. Yeah. But he said, and I'm not bothered whether they're all centre forwards. Okay. Because they win you the matches. And I always thought, whenever we kind of built a team, or I always looked at the front player. Yeah. Yeah. And the thing that surprises me now is, Tom Cannon and Elliot Sims and lads like that. Will they get the opportunity on a regular basis to play in our first team, like Franny did, like Chaddy did, like Victor, like Varney, Jevo, Kadamarji? So I always believed in having the best front players you could get hold of. And I don't know, it wasn't a bad thing. To answer your question, is you know, are there less players coming through? I think it's more difficult. I think there's different pressures on the players now, social media and what have you. But the biggest problem, if it is a problem, is the globalisation of the game, and information where I didn't even know the clubs in South America. Now you've only got to press a button, and you know who all the best young players are. Yeah, straight away. And so it's become. And you can get data on so much of them now, can't you? As well, even young kids. You can get the data on. So. But Brighton do it very well, don't they? Yes. You know. They just brought Evan Ferguson through. He's just signed a new deal. He's had a great season. But again, he might be a generational one for them. He might just be, they've got him in and he's developed brilliantly and he's doing well. And it is difficult because obviously, like you just said, there's so much competition for everything. Money, people know everything. Players, clubs are looking not just at your own now. You're going, well, there's a 20-year-old in France and he might be the same as Tom Cannon, but he plays in France, so he's a little bit sexier or whatever. And it is a difficult one. Last one, I'll because I know we're pushed for time. No, I could say it all day. Oh yeah, I could do another two. I was quite comfortably. I've got loads. I might have to get you back in for part two. But just, you mentioned, only because you just mentioned them, but Jarrod Branthwaite, who's obviously young Everton centre back, is on loan at PSV, come from Carlisle. He's had a great season for PSV, 30 games, or 4 goals for them. Actually, be ironically one of Everton's top scorers if he was still here with 4. There's a lot of clubs looking at him. You know, the other lot are apparently looking at him. PSV, I think, want to keep him. He's 21 in June, so therefore he's young for a centre-back. But Everton, I think, run a risk of losing him if they don't put him in. So how would you look at that if A, as an Evertonian, but B, given your background as well? You've got a lad who's 21 in the summer, but he's on loan at a European club and doing very well. Everton aren't exactly amazing. It's not like we've got 2 young, great centre-backs. We've got 3 or 4 of our centre-backs are 30. What would you do with him? Well, number one, he's got a massive asset and he's left-footed. And he's a left-footed centre-back, and they don't come along that way. No. So straight away, you've got a balance in there. Dare I say it, much will depend on where we finish. Yeah. You know, and I don't even want to think about that because it's unthinkable, isn't it? But a lot of changes may be made if the worst happens, and that might be for the better. You know, so players who are on the fringe now could get runs and then be ready to come back in if it happens. But I think when you've got somebody as good as that at 21, he has to be in your squad. and given a chance to play when, you know, when I spoke about the process, I talked about, you know, identifying, recruitment, developing. Right at the end of it is retain or release.
Yeah.
But in that has got to be opportunity. Now, if that opportunity is somewhere else, he's already had it.
Yeah, yeah.
And so it would be crazy for all of that work to have gone on to get him to what he is, for him just to leave.
Yeah, that was kind of what I was thinking, is that you've seen that others process over it. Just imagine you're the academy director at Everton, and you've seen him, you've got him, and you've worked with him a bit, and he's gone out on loan, he's come back, and he's gone to a bigger club, and he's had the opportunity, like you've said, he'll play another 3 or 4 games for them this season, and then he'll come back to Everton in the summer, having played 30 odd times for PSV in European competition, to be told your 3rd, 4th, 5th choice here. That, if you're that player,
I don't think. Well, in my opinion, he would be. He'd be on the team.
Yeah.
From what I've seen and what I remember. But that happens all the time. I mean, you mentioned Brighton, and they are brilliant at succession planning.
Yeah.
So they've already put programs together for, you know, if he goes, or he's in. You know, you would hope that he would be a starter next season. Yeah. If not, he would be first man in.
Yeah, if there's an issue, yeah. We just haven't done that well enough, have we? Succession planning, managers, players.
Could I finish with a soppy bit?
Go on. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I've done my questions. Well, you know, part 1.
I was the luckiest man in the world because I got to work for the club I adore, and I think in your questions, some of it was difficult for me to answer because I love the club.
Yeah.
And it's dare I say it, I'm not sure that feels there as much now.
Okay.
And I don't just mean our club. I mean anywhere. It's a stopping off place. It's and maybe that's society. I don't know. But I tell you what, you can't build something or help build something and then leave it.
Yeah.
Can you? Or no. I couldn't. So you build it, and I left when it was right. And I think when I do go into Finch Farm and when I see you know, there's so much stuff going on, I think the essence of the one thing, and that was to develop one player per season, sometimes gets missed.
Yeah.
Okay. I did a presentation not so long ago, and it was to an American sports directors from clubs all over the place. And I said, any questions at the end of it? And he stood up and he said, yeah. He said, why in your aim did you just say one player a minimum of one player per season? He said, why not 11? And if I had my old time all over again, that's what I'd do.
Really?
I would try and get 11, because you might get 1 then.
Yeah. Yeah. Aim higher and aim for the moon, you listen. Yeah. Listen, Ray, absolutely brilliant, lovely to chat. Big thanks to Ray for coming in. It is almost the 25th anniversary of that 1998.
May the 1st, May the 7th.
That's the one. FA Youth Cup winning. The days when Everton win trophies. God. And get players in the first team. Hopefully they will be back soon. Give this video a thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't. Put the comments, any of your comments in, any questions for Ray, and I'll get them back in again. And we'll have a chat about that, because I have got more I wanted to ask him, but he's got a lot written down there, so I reckon there's bits we've missed out. But big thanks for watching. We'll see you later.